OK, now, Labour peer Lord Blunkett has proposed that British values must be taught in schools, warning the UK will regret it if not. Following the summer riots and the resurgence of far-right ideologies, I said that in inverted commas, by the way, the former Education Secretary told peers that reinforcing shared values is now more crucial than ever. So we're asking, should schools teach British values? Or would that be a step backwards for our education system? Joining me now is historian and broadcaster, one of my favourite people, Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. Rafe, thank you very much for coming in. Lovely to have you in the studio. British values in school. What do you make of this one?
Well, not for the first time. Lord Blunkett is correct, but for the wrong reasons. Western values are under attack and under threat. And I say Western values because these values that they're talking about, democracy, free speech, tolerance, they apply just as much to the Swedes and the Dutch and the Canadians as they do to us. These are about Western civilized values, and they are under threat. But they're not under threat from this so-called far right. They're under threat from the far left and from radical Islam. These are mountains compared to the far right molehill. We have the most radically left-wing youth in history. We've never seen such extreme radical left-wing views being held.
What makes you say that, Rafe, by the way?
What's that?
What makes you say that we have the most radical left?
Well, all of the evidence. I've written a chapter on this, actually, on the left stranglehold over education more broadly, and it mirrors the rise of left-wing teachers as well at the same time. But, for example, more British youth think that protecting free speech is less important than not causing offence and stopping hate speech. And, of course, their definition of hate speech is so loose that it would encompass the everyday conversations of most viewers of this channel. And at the same time, of course, vast swathes of British Muslim youth hold far more extreme and intolerant and undemocratic views than even their parents or grandparents. So we do have to have a robust defence of Western values and a robust promotion. Otherwise, in the next 20 or 30 years to come, we'll be living in a dystopian future where all of these values are completely denigrated. And one of the ways I've written about this in the past, one of the things you need to do is you need to teach both citizenship classes and history classes where the long, hard struggle to the freedoms and democracy we enjoy today is taught, from Magna Carta through women's suffrage and universal suffrage, and also what happens if you lose those. So teaching about what happened behind the Iron Curtain in the communist world, referencing to Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago and so forth. And at the same time, from the ages of 10 to 16, I've also said that you need to have compulsory debates in classrooms where children have to debate from a position opposite to the one they would normally hold. That builds resilience in them, and that teaches them that opposing viewpoints do have validity. But none of this can happen if you don't actually tackle the teaching profession too, and the teacher training processes, because in the last 30 years, we've seen teaching profession go from being fairly balanced when I was at school to now over 90% of teachers vote for left-wing and centre-left parties. And a lot of that is because of the teacher training institutions, or woke madrasas, as I call them now. That's essentially, these are indoctrination camps, because teachers used to be trained in independent teacher training colleges, which worked very well. But ever since university departments of education took them over, these are the most left-wing elements of any university, we've seen the shocking rise in far left groupthink, fueled also by places like the National Education Union, which promotes decolonizing the curriculum, and actually just recently put out a whole document about fighting fascism for its teachers.
What do you think, just quickly, Rafe, we are running out of time here. Jackie Smith, Lady Smith as she now is, she has said in response to this that schools should have some autonomy in the area. They need to be free to embed the values in a way that meets the needs of their pupils. What do you think she means by that?
Well, I'm sorry, we can't have autonomy in our teaching profession until we actually get a better balance. I'm not calling for for right-wing teaching or for left-wing teaching. We want a balance, and unfortunately, we cannot entrust the future of our democracy to a teaching profession now that teaches slanted history, because we know from white supremacy to white privilege to decolonization, these are concepts that are now being taught to our children. And too much of the focus on our children is about universities. As I like to say, when the hair is blue, there's nothing you can do. You need to focus on children in primary schools, and we need to just restore balance, because we want children to be able to make up their own minds, to be taught how to think and not what to think.
Do you think, Rafe, I mean, how do we ensure that this is being done and in the right way? Do you think there should be some sort of testing brought in, like an exam? about British values or Western values, as you would say?
No, I don't. I think those things are meaningless. I think we simply need children to understand the long, hard struggle that it took us to get to where we are, to teach respect, and actually also, in many ways, to actually engage with these ideas by debating things openly rather than feeling that they can't talk about subjects. Because we know a lot of children don't feel they can actually have an opposing viewpoint to any issue because they'll be looked down upon not just by their pupils but often by teachers. And of course, we've had more and more evidence now that students learn by osmosis. Teachers aren't necessarily being political in the classroom, but the kids can understand where their teachers lie on the political spectrum and therefore believe that they are holding the wrong viewpoint if they disagree with them.
And just very, very finally, because I do find this fascinating, and this has been raised by one... Sorry, I've lost your name now. What if parents say, I do not want my child to be taught Western British values in school and I want to withdraw my child from that class?
Well, I'm sorry, we are living in the West. We must have a robust defence of British values and of British culture, of our customs and our norms. And one of the great problems today is we have spent too long in our education system elevating minority cultures over the overarching British monoculture. And that is why we're in the position we're in. We have turned love of nation into national self-loathing. And unfortunately, our teaching profession has been at the forefront, actually, of teaching children too much about the wrongs of our past rather than celebrating our glorious history and the fact that Britain is, for example, the world's third least racist country, and yet the majority of British children believe that racism is the biggest issue, bigger than climate change. They think it's systemic racism in this country, even though we are the third least racist behind just Sweden and Brazil.
Using the internet without a VPN is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. We want to help protect you. This video's sponsor, Private Internet Access, is the VPN to help keep you safe. Now, you might be asking, what is a VPN? Well, a virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. This way, it shields your digital life from the eyes of those that are looking to exploit your private information. Whenever you connect to the internet on a public Wi-Fi network, such as at airports, coffee shops, friends' houses, or even in your own home, your data is at risk of being stolen. Hackers that are connected to the same Wi-Fi network have the ability to steal your personal data with ease. T-Mobile reached a settlement this year with the US Federal Communications Commission after they suffered data breaches in 2021, 22, and 23. In 2023 alone, over 37 million customers' data was exposed. And it's not just hackers to be concerned about. Information can be censored. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news content that you love. Private Internet Access is available for all platforms: Windows, macOS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one Private Internet Access subscription to protect an unlimited number of devices at the same time. Plus, we've got a huge GB News discount. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get 83% off PIA. That is under £2 a month, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free. There's also a 30-day money-back guarantee. So head to piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Emma Bellnell and Chloe Dodds. So I am going to come to you. Actually, I'm going to come to you first, Chloe, on this one, because I know Emma was building up a head of steam on this one. What did you make about, well, A, what Lord Blunkett has said, that British values are important, we need to teach them in schools, and what you heard Rafe say?
I think that Rafe was right in saying that this guy is right for the wrong reasons. We do need to teach British values in schools, but I don't think that that is because there is this huge rise of the far right in schools. I teach kids, I teach maths, and they all come to me saying, oh, you know, our teachers are ridiculous. They're telling us that we can't say anything about Andrew Tate. We can't talk about Andrew Tate. We can't look up to him because these teachers, they've seen one clip online of him saying women can't park or something like that. And they don't listen to most of what Andrew is saying, telling kids to be hardworking, don't be be a victim, you know, work out, make money, this sort of thing, right? I think that it's not just free speech, like Rafe was talking about. I think it's very, very important because especially when they get to universities, the kids are an absolute nightmare now, just wanting to no platform everybody. It's free speech, but I think it's other things like queuing, for example. Kids need to learn to queue, to be polite, to queue up properly for their lunch.
That's a really good point. What is with pushing in?
Yeah, I mean, in my school, the kids were all breaking arms and stuff, pushing everyone through the queue. It was an absolute nightmare. I think a lot of people feel like kids these days, they're just feral. It is the parents as well, but also in school, it's too soft. There needs to be a bit of discipline.
But as a teacher, what did you make of Rafe saying that teachers are literally indoctrinated in the left wing now?
I think that a lot of them are, not all of them. I had some good teachers, some bad teachers, but I think when I went to school, I was lucky that the teachers that I had, even if I knew that they were left-wing, they were quite good, for example, my history teachers, at explaining both sides of the argument. But I think the impression I'm getting is that nowadays that's very much shifting, where they're just giving their side of the argument. And especially as Rafe pointed out, there's very much an anti-West mentality. And if they talk about our past, they'll just look at the bad bits. They won't look at the good things that Britain has done. And I'm not saying that they should just show the good things that Britain has done, and it's just like, oh, we love the monarchy, we love colonialism and all of this. But they should show both sides, because we've got a generation that hates the West now, and that's going to lead to the West's fall. We'll be taken over by radical Islam if it keeps going the way it's going.
Emma, we have a generation that hates this country, hates the British people, and we're being taken over by radical Islam. What do you make of that one?
I'm not going to swear, I promise. That is however British that is.
Very British, to be fair. British values that include swearing.
It's just nonsense. It's absolute. Look, there are... how do you define British values of freedom of speech and tolerance of difference of opinion without accepting that you will disagree with some of those opinions? I think there are certain things that you are right about in terms of, I think, when you're teaching history or sociology, there will be anyone who's come into that subject enough to care about it will probably have their own opinions, but they do need to be able to display different perspectives on it and to say, you know, go and do further reading, to be able to mark an essay that says, this is what X says, this is what Y says about it, and these are the strengths and weaknesses of each of those arguments. That's important. But, I mean, I would say, particularly, Chloe, that for me, if we're ever talking about a shared set of values, that would probably include being critical of someone who was under arrest for people trafficking, sexual assault.
Andrew Tate, you're talking about.
Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
I'm just, so that's fine. They can have a conversation about it, right? But don't say to children, you're not allowed to talk about this individual. You've got teachers that are saying that Andrew Tate is banned in schools, right? And just giving their opinion on it, right?
But I mean, Andrew Tate being banned, like, I wouldn't expect teachers to be showing them videos of Jimmy Savile either.
I'm not telling them. I'm not telling them to hit them about Andrew Tate, right? They should be teaching them their history, their geography,
whole other school.
But don't ban children from talking about it. And just on that point of having conversation, I think a great thing also would be if more schools had debating societies. Often they're just in private schools, but I think they are absolutely fantastic. Debating in school was brilliant for me because you're given a side of an argument, often the side you completely disagree with, and told, right, stand there for 5 minutes and defend that side. And that's how you learn both sides of an argument, and that really fosters a belief in free speech and debate.
I fully believe in free speech, and I do agree that debating and that kind of soft skill, I think it's known as within the teaching, is really important, because a lot of what you get at the private schools is not so much that you're taught a different curriculum, but you're given all of those additional things that give people sometimes unearned confidence. I mean, I've worked in and around Westminster for 20 years, and I can tell you that some of the people I've met who were privately educated were significantly less clever than some other people I've met in my life, but they were bloody confident. And that is what I think a lot of what is given and inculcated in children. I would like to see all children given that opportunity, and I think debating clubs is a great way of doing that. It's not going to be for everybody. You need to find different ways of bringing out different skills and different confidences. You know, not every kid is going to be fully verbal in those terms. But I do think, I mean, one of the things they've talked about recently, the government, is oracy. And that is exactly, debating clubs would be a great way of improving people's oracy.
OK, brilliant. Thank you very much, ladies. We have to move on for now.